Hello, welcome to Prajim Technologies. I'm Venkat. This is part 59. In this session, we'll understand the difference between convert.toString method and toString method. Let's understand that with an example. In this program, you see a very simple customer class that has just got a name property. Now, to create an instance of this class, we say customer C1 is equal to new customer. Now, to get the string representation of this C1, we can use .toString method. So C1.toString. So when we do that, we get the string representation of this customer object. So let's create a string variable to hold that. Let's call string str. All right. If we want to print that, we can say console.writeLine str. And if you remember, in the previous session, we have discussed about the importance of overriding the toString method. If you want something meaningful out of the string representation of a specific object, then we override the toString method. But here, we haven't overridden the toString method. Okay. By the way, where is this toString method coming from? It's coming from the base object class, and we haven't overridden that. So obviously, when we try to run this, what do we get back? We get back, the complete type name, including the namespace. Okay, that's the default implementation that's available in system class. All right. So to get the string representation of this customer object, there is another way. Now, instead of using toString, we can use the convert class. So convert dot. In this class, we have a static method toString. You can use that and pass the object. Okay. Now when I run that, and obviously in the output you wouldn't see any difference. Okay, you get the same output. Okay, but the difference is when this customer object reference variable is null for some reason. Okay, if you are passing this as a parameter to a method and you don't initialize that, or this object is not created for some reason, it is possible that it could be null at times. Okay, so if it is null, and when I use the toString, the static toString method in the convert class, what actually happens is, let's put a breakpoint here. When we run this, so if you look at this, C1 is null. So when you pass a null object to the toString method in the convert class, it actually converts that even null into an empty string. Look at that, str is an empty string. Okay, but on the other hand, if we use toString method on the object c1.toString, what's going to happen? Let's see. Let's run this. When you run this, what happens? Look at this. We already got a null reference exception, and that's because, look at that, c1 is null, and on that null you're trying to call this instance toString method. So on a null object, okay, you cannot call an instance method, so that's why we get a null reference exception thrown. And it makes sense. And you look at the error message, null reference exception, object reference not set to an instance of an object, which means this reference variable is not pointing to any instance of the object on the heap. Okay, so very simple difference between convert.toString and toString. So what's that? Convert.toString handles nulls and return an empty string if the passed in object is null. But whereas the toString method doesn't handle nulls and it throws an exception. What type of exception? Null reference exception. Why? Because on a null object, you're trying to convert to a string. So we get a null reference exception back. Okay, but you cannot say one method is better over the other. Depending on the type of the application, the architecture of that application, and what you're trying to achieve, you choose one over the other. For example, if you're designing a class library and you expect a property to be initialized, or you expect the object to be, you know, uh, pointing to some concrete object on the heap, and if users the client code, if the client code doesn't pass in that object, then it makes sense to throw an exception. But in the UI, you don't want to be throwing an exception on the UI part. You just want to print the error message to the user. In that case, probably you use the convert.toString, just in case if it happens to be a null. We can check if it's an empty string using convert.toString, and then display an appropriate error message on the UI to the user. So depending on the type of the application architecture and what you're trying to achieve, you choose one over the other. We cannot say one is better over the other. On this slide, you can find resources for ASP.NET and C# interview questions. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.